What if the thing you enjoy most is actually destroying you? Scrolling, binging, craving. They don't seem evil, they're just habits, comforts, coping mechanisms. But Plato would call them something darker. He'd say, you're not living, you're being sedated. Pleasure in Plato's eyes isn't freedom. It's a trap, a soft, invisible prison that doesn't need chains, because you'll never want to leave it. And here's what makes it worse. You think it's normal. You think everyone lives like this. You think this is happiness. But what if that's the illusion? What if the very things that feel good are the reason you feel so empty? Plato warned of this exact condition, where the soul becomes addicted to pleasure and forgets what truth even looks like. He called it the lowest state of man, a life without self-mastery, a life of illusion, a life of slavery to pleasure, and most terrifying of all, that's the life most people live today. Let's rewind. 2,400 years ago, ancient Athens, the birthplace of democracy, philosophy, and human ambition, a time of intellectual revolution, but also a time of deep corruption, moral decay, and indulgence. And right in the middle of it all, a man named Plato was watching, not as a politician, not as a warrior, but as something far more dangerous, a philosopher with a mirror. He held that mirror up to his society, and what he saw horrified him. A people obsessed with wealth, distracted by entertainment, addicted to pleasure. And what disturbed him most wasn't just what they were doing. It was that they didn't even know it was destroying them. They thought they were living the good life. But in Plato's eyes, they were sleepwalking through existence. Now fast forward to today. We have AI, Wi-Fi, global empires made of code. But the core problem hasn't changed. We chase pleasure the way moths chase flame. We mistake comfort for meaning, and we call that life. But Plato didn't write for his time alone. He wrote for every era corrupted by easy dopamine, including ours, especially ours. This video is not just about what Plato believed. It's about why his warning might be the most important thing you'll ever hear. Because if you don't understand pleasure, it will control you. To understand Plato's warning about pleasure, you first have to understand how he saw the human soul. Plato believed the soul wasn't just some vague spiritual essence. It had structure, a design, and a constant inner conflict. He described it with one of the most powerful metaphors in all of philosophy, the chariot allegory. Imagine a chariot. The charioteer represents your reason, your logical mind. One horse is noble, disciplined, aiming upward. That's your will, your sense of higher purpose. The other horse is wild, unruly, driven by lust, desire, hunger. This is your appetite, your craving for pleasure. And here's the thing. Most people let the wild horse take over. They live ruled by appetite, drinking, scrolling, binging, chasing. They become slaves to whatever feels good in the moment, even if it slowly destroys them. Plato saw this in the Athenian society of his time, and he feared it was leading to spiritual collapse, because when appetite rules, there is no discipline, no virtue, no truth. And when the charioteer, your reason, can no longer steer the soul, you crash, not physically but spiritually. You lose your center, you become fragmented, you mistake indulgence for happiness and comfort for freedom. And here's what's terrifying. Plato believed this wasn't rare. He believed most people live this way, their souls in disarray, their desires unchecked, their higher selves buried beneath instant gratification. In other words, we're not bad people, we're just untrained souls, dragged by the wrong horse, and until you learn to take back the reins, you will always be pulled by whatever pleasure feels easiest. Let's face something uncomfortable. You live in a pleasure machine. Everything around you, your phone, your feed, your entertainment, your food, is optimized to make you feel good, quickly, effortlessly, endlessly, and we love it. But Plato wouldn't. He would call this a mass delusion, a seductive illusion that steals your strength while whispering, relax, enjoy, you deserve it. Here's how it happens. 1. Pleasure rewires your desires. Every time you scroll, swipe, tap, you're not just killing time, you're teaching your soul something. You're telling it, I want this, more of this, only this. And slowly, you begin to need it. Not because it's meaningful, but because your wild horse, your appetite has taken the reins. You think you're free, but you've become dependent. Plato would say, you've mistaken your master for your friend. 2. Pleasure hides pain. We scroll when we're anxious. We binge when we're lonely. We chase novelty when we're afraid of silence. But Plato believed pleasure is often just pain in disguise. The reason we run to it is because we're running from something else. And the more we indulge, the less we face the truth of who we are. 3. Pleasure freezes growth. Growth is uncomfortable, but pleasure is easy. And that's the trap, because what's easy becomes automatic, and what's automatic becomes your life. Plato warned of people becoming spiritually frozen, unwilling to face discomfort, unwilling to change, unwilling to seek truth. In his words, pleasure tends to produce forgetfulness of the soul. 4. Pleasure makes you hollow. The more you feed on empty pleasure, the emptier you feel afterward. Sound familiar? You binge watch a series and feel numb. You scroll TikTok for 3 hours and feel tired. You eat junk food and feel guilty. Why? Because pleasure without purpose always leaves a hole. Plato saw it in the politics of Athens, in the festivals, the theatre, the distractions. He watched a once great city rot from the inside, because people stopped asking, is this good? And only asked, do I enjoy it? 5. Modern pleasure is weaponized. This is where Plato's warning becomes chillingly accurate today, because now, you're not just fighting your own desires, you're up against billion-dollar algorithms, designed to bypass your reason, to hijack your soul's chariot, to keep the wild horse in charge, because that's what sells. Plato feared this, a world where appetite becomes culture, where people laugh at wisdom and worship entertainment, where feeling good replaces being good, and if that sounds like today, it's because Plato saw it coming. The measure of a man, he said, is what he does with his pleasures. Plato didn't want you to hate pleasure. He wasn't anti-joy. He wasn't some cold, lifeless ascetic. But he believed that pleasure must follow virtue, not lead it. In other words, it's okay to enjoy things, but only after you've done what's good for your soul. So how do you live that way, in this world? 1. Interrupt the pleasure loop. Start by noticing the loop, that instant impulse to check your phone, that craving for sugar when you're stressed, that binge of YouTube when you're bored. Pause and ask, what am I really seeking right now? Often it's not pleasure, it's relief, from boredom, from fear, from loneliness. Plato would say, until you face the root, you'll keep feeding the illusion. 2. Train the soul, not just the body. We go to the gym, we watch what we eat, but what do you do to train your soul? Plato believed the soul needs structure, routines that discipline desire, silence, study, honest self-reflection, resisting easy gratification, not forever, but on purpose. Think of it like weightlifting. Each time you delay a pleasure, you strengthen the charioteer, your reason. You teach your wild horse that it's not in charge anymore. 3. Seek higher pleasures. Not all pleasure is bad. Plato believed in higher pleasures like the joy of learning, the clarity of truth, the strength of virtue, the beauty of justice. These pleasures require effort. They're not viral, they're not trending, but they last, and they build a soul that doesn't need distraction. 4. Rethink relationships. Now think about love. Plato believed most people fall in love with looks, not souls. They chase romance like another pleasure, another high, another hit. But he warned, you do not love the person. You love the way they make you feel. That kind of love fades fast. It's fragile. It's selfish. Instead, Plato spoke of platonic love, love that lifts the soul, love that helps you pursue wisdom, love that teaches discipline, beauty, courage. So ask yourself, is your relationship feeding your soul or your appetite. 5. Redefine freedom. Today we think freedom means do whatever you want. But Plato believed that's not freedom, it's chaos. Real freedom is self-mastery. The ability to choose the harder path, to delay gratification, to lead your own soul. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And in a world where most people are mastered by impulse, that kind of freedom is revolutionary. Practical challenge. Try this. Go 24 hours without your top 3 pleasure habits. It could be social media, sugar, porn, or binge watching. Watch how uncomfortable you get. That discomfort, that's your wild horse. And if you can sit with it, if you can stay conscious, you begin to reclaim the reins. That's not just discipline, that's Plato's path to freedom. So what does all of this boil down to? What exactly was Plato trying to tell us across 24 centuries? Let's crystallize it. 1. Most people are not free. They're addicted. They don't even realize it. They think they're in control, but their desires are driving the chariot. They are ruled by what feels good, not by what is good. Plato wouldn't call this freedom. He'd call it slavery. The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. 2. Pleasure isn't evil, but it must be earned. Plato never said to avoid pleasure forever. He said to reorder it. Let virtue lead. Let discipline drive. Let pleasure follow. As a reward, not a ruler. Because when you reverse the order, you reverse your life. 3. Your soul has structure, and it must be trained. Plato's chariot allegory isn't just a metaphor, it's a manual for living. The charioteer, your reason, the horses, your higher will, and your lower desires. If you don't actively train your soul, someone else will hijack it. Usually, someone selling ads. 4. The easy life is not the good life. We are told to make life easier, to optimize for comfort. But Plato saw this comfort as a spiritual sedative. The more comfortable you get, the less courageous you become. Excess of liberty, he said, seems only to pass into excess of slavery. 5. Real happiness requires struggle. This is the hardest truth. Real happiness, the kind that fulfills your soul, takes effort, takes structure, takes self-denial, but it's the only kind that lasts. Plato called it eudaimonia, not pleasure, but flourishing, not stimulation, but purpose. You can't scroll your way to this. You can't binge your way to it. You can't pleasure your way there either. You have to earn it by mastering the wild horse inside you. Only then does your soul begin to fly. You've made it this far, which means you already feel it. Something is off in the way we live today. Something deep inside is out of balance. You feel the constant pull to check your phone, to escape into pleasure, to avoid discomfort. And now you know why. Plato told us. He warned us. The soul is like a chariot. If you do not master the horses, they will master you. So here's the question. Who's driving your chariot right now? Is it your reason or your impulse, your vision, or your craving? Because most people have never even asked. You don't have to become a monk, you don't have to give up all joy, but you do have to choose, will you live for pleasure or for purpose? That choice will shape your future, your relationships, your strength, your freedom, and only one of those choices leads to a life worth living. So here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, delay one pleasure every day, on purpose. Just one. Something small. Notice the craving. Watch the discomfort. Don't escape. Stay present. Because that is the beginning of self-mastery. And that's the beginning of Plato's path. If this video challenged you, don't just like it, live it. Share it with someone you know is caught in the trap. And comment below, I will not be a slave to pleasure. Let's build a community of souls in training, not just followers. Philosophy isn't for the classroom. It's for the battlefield of your everyday life. And now, you've got the armor, use it.